You know what time it is, no matter where you've been. So let's do it again. Listen up and let the sun shine in. We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
Hey, what do you think that makes soul training so, why are we such like SEAL Team 6? I mean, like we're such a tight-knit group. What makes us that way? What do you think?
So it's that personal touch, that personal relationship, right?
It is that personal relationship. I mean, Zig Ziglar says that people will not become interested in you until you what? Become interested in them. So I think that's why we have what we have, is that personal touch. I mean, I don't know if we could, I don't know if I could survive SEAL training or not, but
I know I couldn't.
I was my son rolled me out of bed this morning about 5:45, wanted me to go to the gym with him, and I got on the treadmill for 30 minutes and then did some other things and got in the sauna, and I finally got to feel like what what cookie dough felt like. I kind of felt like that because I asked him later, I said, how hot is it in there? And he said, about 200 degrees. I said, well, I was rising. There for a minute, I was hoping somebody was going to check on me. I was about to get burnt.
That's rough. I tried SEAL training one time.
Did it make you bark?
Well, I couldn't ever get that rubber ball to bounce on my nose.
Yeah, I think this is a little different. He always gets an A for effort, though. I'll give you
got to give it to him. He's not afraid to throw one out there and just see. And they're not always winners.
Hey, you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
That's right.
I heard Michael Jordan say that. I mean, I didn't hear him say it, but I read that he said that.
That was a Wayne Gretzky quote.
Are you sure?
That's what I thought. I don't know.
You know what Wayne Gretzky's hockey number was?
What?
99. What two teams did he play for?
He played for
It's hockey teams.
Los Angeles?
Well, that was you're a young Jedi. See, I'm an older Jedi. So he played for the Edmonton Oilers in the 80s, and then he later played for and bought the LA Kings.
Okay.
So
I don't know how we got there.
Soul Training Sports Edition.
But that part, I think that's why it's what it takes to have a tight relationship, is you have to make an investment. You have to have a personal commitment. You have to see the reason. You have to connect the dots. And today we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about how many in the world, the secular world, or the world, and sometimes even Christians who claim to be Christians, that they love Jesus but not the church. And that's a mouthful. That's a pretty big topic. And I'm just going to ask both of you, then I have a few things to share later on or something, some scriptures. But why do you think that is? Why do you think that people love Jesus, but they don't love the church? And we're talking about, some people will think, well, the church is the building, it's the classrooms, the carpet, but it's not. It's the people. So why do you think people struggle with the people, but they still want Christ?
I think there's two sides to that. One is Jesus is easy to love because you read about what he's done for us and all that. It's hard to hate Jesus, but also if you decontextualize him and you don't have other people that are teaching you things about Jesus, addressing you with the harder sides of Jesus, people craft Jesus in anything they want him to be, and they make a Jesus in their own image, and that's easy to love, and really it's self-love.
And oftentimes the quote-unquote church never gets close to the idea that they create.
Yeah, sure.
So then they're mad at or they don't have time, maybe. They get flustered with the church.
Yeah, well, see, that's the other side is the church is here, real people. Jesus is a real person. I don't in any way mean to imply otherwise, but people that are physically present that you're interacting with on a daily basis, and they're just as sinful and messed up as you are or have been, and they're going to offend you. They're going to fail to live up to your expectations. They're going to have faults and foibles, and they're going to disappoint you. They're going to betray you. They're going to do all the things that humans do because they're humans. just like you are. And when people have those disappointing experiences with those in a church, and we're talking in broad terms here, I think a lot of the people that have taken this approach of, well, I have a personal relationship with Jesus where, I read my Bible by myself in my home, go out, walk in the woods, I find him there, I don't find him in the church. The reason they have gotten to that point is because they had some disappointing experience with a church.
That's what I was thinking about too, that some or a disappointing experience with a person or a group of people. Joe, what do you think? Why do people love Jesus but not the church?
How many times have I told you I'm not here to talk?
But you do it well. So.
You do.
Well, okay.
This is not the Daniel and Alan
Why
show.
do people love Jesus but not necessarily the church? Well, I think, first of all, most people do love the church. Folks that are active in the assembly, they enjoy it. I know I have, always. You guys are usually around in services, so I imagine you enjoy the church.
I get renewed and refocused and strengthened.
Right. Well, you're around like-minded folks too. You encourage each other. But it's kind of like what Daniel said. I can read about Jesus and I can feel good that my sins are forgiven and Jesus loves me, but there's no other accountability anywhere. Nobody else is keeping an eye on me. So you feel like, I've got Jesus in heaven watching me. He loves me. I don't have to worry about those people over there being accountable to anybody else. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I know.
And then also, it's the easy way out. It takes an effort to get to the assembly. You have to want to do it. You have to wake up, put your clothes on, and go there. Where if you have this, like Daniel mentioned, personal, where I do my personal study, we can do it on your own time. You don't have to worry about a schedule. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the easy way out too.
It is the easy way out because the church is full of people. It is people. It's made up of people, and people are messy. We all have our baggage and our problems and things that we're bringing into the situation. And sometimes you're going to have those interactions that. Many interactions are going to be positive and wonderful, but sometimes it's going to happen. You're going to have a negative interaction, and if you aren't committed to the church as the bride of Christ, if you don't see the church as essential and you don't see the church as vital to your faith and to your service to Christ, then that allows you to not put in the hard work of fixing your relationship with the church and working on that relationship when it's not easy. And in some situations, it's not always easy. But the idea of loving Christ without loving the church, or the other side of that coin, the idea of loving the church and not loving Christ really, is nonsensical because the Bible presents them as a unit to us. Christ is the head of the church is the body of Christ. And so if you separate the two, you're decapitating it, right? So
it is a marriage.
It is a marriage.
I think about your spouse and your spouse and my spouse and I think about our children. I mean, they know that we are committed to one another and all those things. But you're right. If you're not committed, then you're decapitating. If you try to separate one from the other. So, and I was just going to say too, and I know that I think we did an episode with Andy Alexander about, not Andy Alexander, it's a Bible salesman, Andy.
There's still Bible salesmen out there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, online. I mean,
okay.
But he has a shop in a neighboring town.
Anyhow.
And what was the super nice fella, Andy?
Baker.
Andy Baker, yes, Mr. Baker. We did that episode with him about COVID, and back to what Daniel says, I do think, not to beat that horse again, but I fell prey to that, prey. I fell prey to the online stuff because of our way we did our congregation, the decision that were made for a while for safety, and it was, to be honest with you, for a few weeks to to, living room Sunday morning, have breakfast, and then we step over in the living room and we worship and sing and all those things. That was okay just for a little bit. But then even I realized after about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, I don't know, I'm like, we need to get back. This is not what Jesus died for, so
We're missing those relationships. Yeah, the Christian faith, and really the faith of seeking Jehovah God even before Christianity, going back into Israel and Judaism, is meant to be. He's meant to be sought as a part of a community of faith. It's a corporate thing. We're supposed to seek Him together. And if we find ourselves isolated somewhere that there are not other believers, then the biblical example is we set about immediately trying to change that situation and make other believers. So it's spreading. We're not meant to be isolated long term. And thinking about the way Jesus views the church, I think for the sake of this discussion, we're saying it's inarguable that the person loves Jesus. Just for the sake of this argument, that's who we're talking about, the person that loves Jesus. All right, well, look at how Jesus viewed the church. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25 and following says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and without blemish." So the passion, the love that Jesus has for his church, so much that he gave himself for her, ought to let us know that if we're going to love Jesus, we have to love his church. His church has to have a significant place in our life, or that's going to hamper our relationship with him, because it's so vital to him. So that means if we've had a negative experience with the church, one, we need to consider the possibility that we haven't encountered the true church. And just because we encountered a church, maybe they're not doing the things the way that Christ Church in the Bible does them. And so maybe our encounter wasn't actually with authentic church. But even if it was, there's still humans that are making it up. And if we love Jesus and we see how much he loved the church, then that motivates us to put in the hard work to work on that relationship that we have with the church, just like trying to redeem a marriage that is suffering or is at a difficult point.
You mentioned a key word, investing or investment, I like your phrase, putting in the work in our little community. And this is not a Bible story or analogy or comparison, but putting in the work is. But in our little community a few years ago, our little football team was undefeated. The other way, 0-11. Yeah. Somebody got fired. Head coach got fired. But anyway, the new coach came in, and I remember I listened to his shows on Saturday mornings, our little community, his coaches' shows, and he tried to rebuild. He did end up playing for a state championship a few years after he got here, but he tried to change the culture, the mindset. But he would use the phrase that you just used. He said, our kids are going to come in every day. They're going to punch a clock. They're going to go to work. They're going to put in the work. And so I think back to a church standpoint, that just as I learned during COVID, during the online stuff, that I wasn't putting in any work. I actually put in zero work. I put in nothing. No work. I mean, my effort was making sure that we had communion and making sure that we had good batteries in the remote and the Wi-Fi was up. That was it. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but I think that was kind of across the board for everybody, so we weren't putting in any work. So I'm like, Ephesians 5 is that, I've got to put in the work in order for it to work hand in hand. Like, you can't decapitate and separate. You got to be unified because we're sanctified.
Right. And Jesus wants his church to be glorious and pure, not having wrinkle or any such thing. And so that means we love him. We want to put in that work to try to help make the church what it's supposed to be. And if there's something we are noticing about it that doesn't line up with what Jesus' church in the scriptures are supposed to be, then we want to set about not abandoning religion, not abandoning church altogether, but restoring church to what it's supposed to be. And I think every congregation needs to view restoration as a continual process, that we're continually trying to notice if we veer to one side or the other, bringing it back within the lines of Scripture and being what we're supposed to be.
Well, I think someone that loves Christ but doesn't love the church, they don't really understand the New Testament, because the church, the assembly, the church is kind of the focus of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to take Christ and I'm going to be a Christian, but I'm not going to participate in any services, I'm not going to belong to a congregation anywhere, that's the opposite of what the New Testament's telling. I mean, look at all of the letters that were written. They're all written to a church here, a church there. Mm-hmm. Look at even Jesus and his apostles. It's not really thought of as a church, but they were a small congregation of congregants. Right. They were a congregation there.
A community of faith.
A community of faith walking around.
It was written to a church, not individuals.
Right. It's all these letters are always written to a church, to a body there.
Good point.
So it's not written to
the Pritchard household.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and even the ones that are written to individuals, like Philemon, still he is a part of a congregation, and he's talking about his role within that. But it's something else that's tangential that I would like to bring up here is for these folks we're talking about that are seeking a personal relationship with Jesus. There's maybe something that that we can learn from them. They're missing the mark on not appreciating the corporate way that we're supposed to approach God, that the church is very much an essential part of God's plan. But on the other hand, religion, our Christianity has to affect each one of us on a very deep, meaningful, personal level. I need to love Jesus myself. He needs to have changed my life, not in some unique way. Like there's a song that we sing, and I apologize to any of our song leaders that are listening to this. Sing it a lot of places, but it rubs me the wrong way. It's one that I come to the garden alone. And the message there is, I come to the garden alone, walking and holding hands with God there. And there's this line that says, "The joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known." Well, if I believe the Bible, then I think many other people have shared that very same joy. And if I'm an evangelist, I'm seeking to help everybody share that very same joy. I don't feel like I have a
market.
Yeah, I don't have it cornered. Jesus hasn't done something uniquely for me that's not available to everyone. That in no way discounts what he's done for me. But anyway, that may be.
So you're moving into the personal Savior side of things here now, right?
A little bit, but more as an aside. I guess where I really was going.
I'm glad he is, because I thought about a word that you use that I think that's evident as transformed.
Transformed, yeah.
Yeah, transformation. What has Jesus done for you and me? Well, then we hopefully as Christians we should be able to list a lot of things that Jesus has done for me. The old, in Romans 6, the old man's been put away. Mm-hmm. And the new man, we're a new creation. Well, how are we a new creation? Well, we're transformed. Well, how specifically? Right. So anyway, I like that direction of the because that's personal.
It is. We have to repent. We have to be different. We become a new creation ourselves. And I've encountered people that I think very much love the church, that have been active, faithful members of the church for a long, long time, that I really don't think they have hardly any relationship with Jesus at all. Like, you just don't see, they don't talk about him. It's not a part of their regular conversation. It's not, and maybe they do, and they're just not showing it. But they're all team church. But when it comes to actually loving Jesus, and they're being,
so the church is a social club more than anything.
It's a social club. It's a political party, maybe, to them. It's a group that they belong to.
You're hitting on everything. You're right.
Do we have to share our email after this episode? Because I have to check it.
Well, I actually had a guy tell me once at a football. I go to a lot of games, or I did, a football game, and there was a person who told me that his family were members of the church and still are. I said something to him. You know what? I wish, why don't you come? Or so, I know we were talking, and he said, well, the church is a country club. You use social club and political party, but he said country club, and he kind of got me on my heels for a second, and I did disagree, but then on the way home, I thought, I try to have empathy, and not be heavy-handed. And so I kind of thought about, why would he feel that way? Well, maybe go back to what you said, an experience, a negative experience. Maybe somebody has really knocked his legs out from under him and really caused, and never didn't show a lot of compassion that Christ would. So then he felt had been shut out for some reason. I don't know, but I never heard the country club phrase tag.
What we keep coming back to is somebody's had an experience.
A negative experience.
And so what we really need the solution, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The solution is to try to create positive experiences.
Right.
Always be on guard. Don't let your guard down. Don't say things that you wouldn't want broadcast everywhere,
or post something.
Or post something. That's a tough one nowadays, folks.
And there's commitment there too. You're not going to divorce your wife because you came home and she said a careless word to you that hurt your feelings a little bit. You shouldn't.
Right.
And so you're going to work through those things because of your commitment to the relationship. And if we're committed to Jesus, we got to be similarly committed to his church.
Yeah, the way the church should work is, I rejoice when you're rejoicing. I'm sad when you're sad. I'll help you with your burdens, and vice versa. That's when it's at its best,
right
here on earth. If we can strive harder to create those good experiences and less bad experiences.
Right. Well, we a lot of times say the church is a family, and that's what we mean by that. But you look around society, and an awful lot of families, maybe most families, are dysfunctional in some way. Churches can be dysfunctional families too. That doesn't mean you throw them away. It means you work on them. You try to fix those relationships.
And endure.
You endure. That's right.
You know what the acronym family is, don't you?
What's that?
Forget about me. I love you.
I like that. Well, add that to the T-shirt list.
Yeah. Also, is that an Alan Jones original?
Not an original. I don't use the word.
You're keeping it alive, though.
I don't use the word steal. I use an academic word called glean.
Right.
I glean that from another football coach on a Saturday morning at one of our rivals. That's what he said.
There you go.
I listen to both sides.
All right. Well,
you're fair and balanced. Is that what you're saying?
I am. And the spin stops here.
Those are probably trademarked phrases. I don't know.
Did you hear me? I said the spin stops here.
Yeah,
Did you like that?
I caught that too.
Probably get sued now.
That's right. That's address that suit to Alan Jones.
That's right.
Anyway, thinking about do we love Jesus? How do we know that we actually have a relationship with him and aren't just committed to the church? I think we need both. We need both, head and body that go together. Back in our heaven episode, I asked this question, and I think it maybe is a possible litmus test for this conversation as well. When you start thinking about the things you look forward to about heaven, and you start listing in your mind the things that people look forward to about heaven, whether it be being reunited with loved ones, a cessation of sorrows and pains, and rest from the hard things of this life. How many things do you list before you get to, I finally get to see Jesus face to face? I get to live in the house of the Lord forever. I get to dwell in the presence of God. How many things do you list that you're looking forward to about heaven before you get to something directly related to God and Jesus?
Our answer to your question would reflect our relationship with Christ.
Exactly. If I'm listing 4 or 5 other things before I even mention Jesus, maybe my relationship with Jesus isn't what it needs to be. Because that's what I need to be longing to see him. I need to be longing to be in the presence of the Father. That's my take on a possible litmus test there.
For me, I guess, I think about Jesus on the cross, and I know that that's stated a lot, that's said a lot. Mm-hmm. But when I think about places like Mark 15, 27 through 30, and I'll paraphrase, I won't read it, but where Jesus is being mocked, he's being told to come down and save yourself, but yet he endured. So for me, that's the transformation. That really connects the transformation for me. His enduring is allowed me to transform. Therefore, my allegiance should be greater, and I should never question. I'm speaking for myself, but I should never question, why do I have to attend an assembly tonight, or why do I have to be part of the work of our local congregation, because that's part of, I'm living a life worthy of his sacrifice, or trying to. I will never get there, but I'm trying to do that. Mm-hmm. So, I've actually had an older seasoned Christian years ago in another congregation I was a part of. He said, Alan, show me where it says I don't have to come back on Sunday, where I have to come back on Sunday night. Go ahead, show it. Now, I was a younger Christian, but even then I knew I didn't want to spar or argue with him, but I saw his attitude. He just wanted to, and scripturally, he was not wrong, but yet I think from a heart standpoint, he was wrong.
Attitude, I don't have to do it.
Attitudinally, scripturally, he was right, but attitudinally, I think he was wrong.
Yeah.
Have you guys mentioned, sorry if I checked out, I was looking at something a second ago. Have we mentioned Hebrews 10 yet?
No, we haven't. Yeah, Hebrews 10:25. Go ahead and read it for me.
Actually, can you start with 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hebrews 10:24. So if you're still on the fence about attending services, I encourage you to read this, Hebrews 10:24 and 25. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near.
So that talks to the responsibility we have toward the church. Somebody says, I'm not getting anything out of church. I don't like
I always say, what are you bringing?
Yeah, exactly. You have that obligation to pour into the church, to spur one another on to love and good works. So it's not. It can't all be about what I get out of the church. And a lot of churches inadvertently feed this. They feed this consumerist type
customer service
mindset. That's right. Come, we've got these programs for your family and all this, and here, let us show you should be a member here because we can meet your needs in all of these ways. And that's well-intentioned and not altogether a bad thing, but the mindset of church shopping as to, I need to find the church that's meeting my needs the best, isn't necessarily the right mindset.
Some of those places will encourage, and I'm not trying to be funny, but they will encourage you to shop, in their gift shop or in their donut shop or their coffee shop prior to worship.
Right.
So that's the whole,
They have donut shops?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they...
That's holy food.
There was holy food.
Yeah, I knew it was. I tried to set him up. I was a pretty good volleyball player at one time, believe it or not. I can set you up.
That.
Well, we've got about a minute left, but if I could introduce a new segment, and it's going to be Big Show Joe's Tips for a Happy Life.
Okay,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just thought
is that
of
off
it.
the cuff here?
Off the cuff.
Are you gonna say because I like me? What was the guy who used to do that?
Stuart Small.
Yeah, I like me. Go ahead, Joe.
No,
I'm good
we're not
enough.
going to do
I'm smart
that.
enough.
You as kind, you as sweet, and you as smart.
So, I about forgot my point, guys. So here's my point: if you have been wronged, don't give up on your church. I think what you have to do, you've got to find the source of whatever ails you there and talk it out. You've got to let this be known. Don't hoard these feelings inside of you, which will ultimately lead to something you don't want. Let it be known. Talk with the offending person. Talk with the elders. Go through that and work it out. Don't just give up.
Yeah, you can't give up on the church.
I don't have a question, but I'll leave you with a statement. I'll conclude my episode on my side. Does the empty pew have a voice?
Is that like
go ahead?
What's the sound of one hand clapping?
Right.
Yeah. The empty pew does have a voice.
It does.
Speaking loudly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess the exhortation here is we want you to love Jesus. And if you love Jesus, we want you to love the church. And if you love the church, you better be loving Jesus too. It all goes hand in hand. It's ought to go hand in hand. Anything else is going to be a distortion of the biblical model of what Jesus is looking for. So, what about you, dear listener? What feedback do you have? What contributions do you have to this conversation or questions you'd like for us to address in the future? We want to hear from you. Also, we want to thank the elders at the South Green Street Church of Christ for making the Soul Training Podcast possible, and we appreciate that very much. And if this has been beneficial to you, we appreciate it if you'd give us a 5-star rating and share it, help other people find the podcast as well, and I hope that it'll be a blessing to them. So until next time, keep soul training.
Got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
To learn more, you can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can write to us, P.O. Box 503, Glasgow, Kentucky, 42142. That's Soul Training.